Hey, friend and colleague, it is Nikki from Full Voice Music in my kitchen here in Nova Scotia and on our very special podcast, episode 200. I have my in-person guest, Markwart Deveaux, and as always, she's bringing some really great strategies. We are talking about institutional memory, and she's going to actually take me through an exercise which you can use in your business right here on the Full Voice Podcast. Welcome to my kitchen, to Nova Scotia. So that's the new rule now. If you want to be on the podcast, you have to come to Nova Scotia.
It's a good rule.
I like that, right?
Vetting.
It's like, so in Nova Scotia, they have like kitchen parties, right? That's a thing. That's a huge thing. It's still a thing. You just go over to somebody's house and you hang out in the kitchen and you have food and you play music and you talk about your feelings.
I want that.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Although I'd be the person to be like, an hour into it, I'm like, y'all need to leave because I need my space. So we haven't hosted.
It's a kitchenette party.
So I also wanted to say that you probably got here the perfect week to experience East Coast fall.
It has been amazing. It's stunning. California has a tiny little bit of fall. It will have fall.
Right.
Definitely forests and all this. But I have to say the saturation of color and the vibrancy, it's breathtaking. And just Nova Scotia in general is breathtaking. The water, the landscapes, the ocean, the rivers. I love, my favorite thing so far is the color of the houses. So how you were telling me that they paint the houses so bright so that the fishermen from the boats can see the houses. And I love it. I love it. And everyone has been so kind. It's like a small town.
You get accosted, right? Wherever you go, you're like you're in a knee-deep conversation forever.
It was
like
great.
you can't go somewhere and just grab something and leave. You'll run into somebody and then you also have to have a conversation.
Right.
So, yes, and
even with a stranger, like when we
we
ran
went coffee.
the coffee person, and we were in one location in Lunenburg. Right? That's where we were.
Yes, we were in Lunenburg, yeah.
And we were at the barn. So shout out barn.
Yep, barn coffee.
Which, by the way, has the best logo I have ever seen in my life.
Yeah, for everybody, like, Michelle is like, look at this logo. This is brilliant.
I know. It's like, these are the things that excite me. I'm such a nerd. But we're in Lunenburg, and we're at this great location that's kind of like on a pier.
Yeah.
And the young woman helping us behind, she's so sweet, she's great. And then you took me to
Mahone Bay, to the barn,
Bay.
to Mohone, and she was there.
And she was there. The barista was there, and she's looking at us. Were you in Lunenburg the other day? We're like, oh my gosh.
She was so sweet.
It was really cool.
Yeah. No, it's been great. And I have to say, the thing with fall leaves, like, it's a timing thing, right? One big windy storm and fall is like, then you just got like nothing to
I'm glad
just
that
dirt and leaves on the ground. So a couple of big announcements. So first of all, this is episode 200. 200. I can't even imagine, like, I have a hard time thinking that I've had 200 conversations, but it's huge. Like, that's a huge milestone.
It is huge. Do you recognize how huge it is? Because I
do.
know you like to just be like, check, 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 check.
You know what? Thank you. Yes, I have reflected on, I've reflected on a bunch of things. First of all, the podcast started as I was frustrated because I was doing a lot of writing for our blog on our website. And this is like a million years ago. And that's a lot of work. Anybody that's out there writing blogs, I mean, now you can use like AI, but back then there was no AI for writing blogs. But I was frustrated because I was like, I don't think I'm getting my message to anybody. And it was Sean that said, well, we have a recording studio in the basement. Would you want to do a podcast? And at first I was like, no way. But then I was like, I do like to talk. But it's been a great learning. Like, I have met so many incredible people. And Sarah Campbell
Yeah.
was my first American
Oh.
that I had on the podcast. So like I started local. Like I literally went like,
Yeah.
to Aldershot, which is like the next town over, and asked a friend to
Sure.
interview. And then I, asked a few more people locally. And then I was like, yeah, no. And she was so lovely. And I was like, oh, I guess I could ask more. And then John Henney was one of my first kind of big
He's
guests.
such a generous soul.
He is awesome. I love that man. He works hard and he puts out good messages.
He's so prolific. I just am like, oh, to have the time and space and lack of responsibility that John Henney has, what could I do with my life? But yeah, and he's so generous of spirit to
he was
great.
John gave me a lot of confidence because I followed him online. I was like, he's doing a lot of, content creation. And I did one of those, I'm going to send an email and I'm hitting send and I'm like, oh my gosh. And I was so worried. And then he got back to me right away. He's like, I'd love to be on your podcast, right? Because when you're first getting started and you go to someone who's, in a bigger arena, you're kind of humbled, or at least I was. But he was generous and kind. We had a lovely conversation. And that kind of was the catalyst for getting more and more people, wider audience and stuff like that. So, and just like meeting people and talking to them and learning from them. I mean, I took so many incredible teaching strategies, philosophies, lessons back to my own studio. So for me, it was like having this really inspiring conversation and then bringing it right back to my students to see it in real time and realizing, how much we can learn from each other, and also realizing how isolated we often are.
Definitely.
Right. So I think the podcast helped me realize that there was so much more out there that I wasn't, I wouldn't have had access to. I wouldn't have met you. I wouldn't have met. We've had so many people from the speakeasy, like the people that you have in your community. So, I mean, it's been, and I think I can honestly say there's a lot of people that have come to you to the speakeasy from listening to you
100%.
on the podcast.
Yeah, 100%. Where, because we do ask like, hey, what made you come or whatever. And then in our, in onboarding, there's a form that can be filled out for one of the, meet and greets. And it's like, how did you hear about us? And Nikki, Loney. There was one person from Australia. And he's like, well, I've listened to all of Michelle's podcasts on Full Voice and I've heard her on the other things and and I figured I might as well just go to the source and join.
That's smart.
Like, well, thank you for finally doing that. But yeah, absolutely. And it's a pleasure to be on a podcast with a person, who is my friend, and not just, a podcast host that I'm on their podcast often. But
I'm not going to name names, but I've done a few interviews with other people, and I just felt like I was just part of their content making machine, and it felt really like, oh, okay, all right, got it.
Yeah, it's tough. It's tough to find we call them fro leagues. Right? Friends that are colleagues.
Oh, fro-leagues.
I
like that.
Yeah.
I like that a lot.
You're my fro league. You're my fro league, Nikki.
Now, when we were outlining this topic, I did go back and I looked at like all the times you've been on the podcast. And I have to say, you were 7 years ago. Like episode something like 63 or something, or 36. 36. And I went over like all of like the topics that you've done. You've done some really powerful topics, and I know that teachers have had some really intense thinking about what they're doing moments, and I love that. I love that, because when you're uncomfortable, you're learning, right? Like you're looking for
that
new
growth edge is,
right? So you have spoken of money mindset, making peace with money, the difference between online and brick and mortar businesses. You've talked about like, honing your offers. One of my favorite ones was um, uh, the pricing for generosity, which was one of the more recent ones about, we think we're helping by just keeping our prices low. But actually, if we charged a living wage, we could actually do more. I loved that. That was huge. But today, we are talking about something, and this is so interesting because when you first told me what it was, I thought it was something, but it's something else.
Okay.
So we're talking about institutional memory.
Yeah.
So, and which is appropriate, 200 episodes, lots of growth and change over 9 years, season 9. 9.
Amazing. I'm going to cry. I'm just because there's so much there's so much institutional memory, right? Like it's its own unique thing now that can never be replicated. And it has legacy. It has weight. It is a thing that happened in the world that can't be brushed aside.
Nice.
And I think that's so cool. That's cool, right? Like, and your business has that too, right? Like every single, especially if you've been doing it for a while, like you have this collective knowledge and belief and understanding and culture and internal jokes and how you do things and how you don't do things. And when you used to do it this way, but now you do it this way, and there's a really good reason, and here's the reason. And it's just all these experiences and knowledge that everyone who is a stakeholder in the business has that makes it a completely separate thing from you as an individual. And it needs to be honored and celebrated, just as you as the business owner needs to be honored and celebrated. So I love that.
Can you give us the definition? Because we had a really good definition of what institutional memory is. Because it's not just going and reminiscing about what you did and what you're doing. Like it's deeper than that.
Yeah. What did you think it was?
I thought it was just you just went back and you just were like, oh yeah, we did this and we improved this and then hooray.
Kind of like memory lane.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, memory lane is important to it, but you're right. It's more than that.
Way deeper than that. And I don't think we do that enough. Just like we were saying, the importance of reflecting back on where you were and where you are and where you want to go. Right. And we were also talking about how easy it is to get stuck, right? How easy to just do things because that's how we've always done it. Or it worked last year. I mean, you were here yesterday when some website things blew up.
No. I hate you, quarantine.
If you've sent me an email in the last little while and haven't had a response, there is a reason for that. And we fixed it. Oh my gosh.
Until next time.
So what the definition that you gave me, can you read that?
Yeah. So we have notes. This one is the best definition I could find. And I found it on a cool management blog. Kind of zhuzhed it a little bit here for you. So I'll just read it straight from here. Often informal and intangible, organizational memory constitutes the body of knowledge and know-how an organization has accumulated through its history. It is a repertoire of collective knowledge found in an organization's functioning, practices, events, decisions, and interpretation models, which ensures its harmonious and efficient functioning. To this end, title represents essential capital.
Whoo.
Yeah. So let's
unpack that.
Yeah, that's a lot of words.
Huge.
I hope I read it slowly enough that it could have its weight. To me, this is a memory that's based on particular individuals, the structure of the business and the roles those individuals play, the procedures that they create because of the roles they're playing, and then all the interactions and what those interactions led to in order to make the culture, make the business what it is. And it's so much more than brand.
Oh, right. Yeah,
Right?
that was my next question. Is this just branding?
No, because branding is kind of like, what do we want other people to feel and believe about us? Institutional memory is like what's really happening. And the reason why it's so important that we recognize that it's a thing is people will come into our studio businesses, they'll come into our music businesses, they'll come into our bands,
right?
Whatever little institution it is.
Right.
And we will have so much connection to that thing, and they don't have any clue what's going on. Right. They don't know how your policies work. They don't know how your pricing works. They don't know how
it makes onboarding super hard. Like, really challenging.
And we've talked about this too, because we both have kids in sports and just like, dear God, please just let me get to all the sports everythings, because it's just, well, of course, this is how you do it. I mean, and it's not, that just isn't it. So institutional memory is like tied to like the core values of the business, why you're doing what you're doing, mission and vision. It's very much about the communication culture, like who talks to who, when, about what, and the decisions that are made. And it is something that we want to be able to quantify, so that when new people and stakeholders, and I'll define stakeholders in a second, but when stakeholders come into the business, that we can help incorporate them and embrace them into the memory of the business, so that they don't just feel accepted or like they know what they're doing, but they're truly incorporated and included into the business.
I want to circle back just for an analogy and for understanding, because like this hit a not a sweet spot, the sore spot. So you and I have talked. We have kids in sports, and we just lived a summer of being in another association, not knowing. I mean, parents were lovely, but communication was like, I mean, what are y'all, a bunch of spies? Like, I don't know what's going on.
It's awful.
And it made, like, even on a financial level, we were like hit with fees at the end of the season, and they're like, oh yeah, well, this is how we do that, and that's just the way.
Nobody told us that.
It's like right, and then like the amount of resentment and frustration that we had as a family. And I see this happen. This happens in all organizations, but specifically in sports, where you have a family that really wants to be there and be a part of your community, and nobody has opened the doors. Nobody has expressed things. You get a random email with a bunch of words, and you're like, I can't tell you how many times I had to sheepishly go up to a parent and go, is this how does this? And it was rough. And we can do this in our studios, right? We do this in our studios 100%.
It happens all the time.
All the time. So I just wanted to share that, because it's like, I can think back to a few families that I really struggled with in my teaching studio, where, I mean, I had for the longest time the same group of families forever. Everybody knew what was going on. They were all indoctrinated. They knew about this recital. They knew about the fees. They knew about this. And then I had new families that I was like, I had to make some corrections in my communication. Yeah. And I learned the hard way by losing a really nice family and not really seeing what was going down, because I was all about whatever, in the comfort zone of everybody that just knew.
Yeah. And it's, no one does this. No one communicates institutional memory perfectly.
Right.
Like, it just can't happen. But knowing that it's a thing, and knowing that you will have like enmeshment with, why you made all the decisions. Nobody else does.
Right.
Nobody. Right. Not even your closest team members.
Right.
And so I want to make it clear that, like, even if you don't have a team, like you and I happen to have businesses where we have teams, it's really important with a team, because that's how people understand the culture of the team and what we're trying to do. But even with the one-on-one studio model, and you're a sole proprietor or solo business owner that you're doing everything, all of the stakeholders, this means your family, your spouses and your partners, and if you have kids, like how your studio works in your house, let's say.
Interesting.
A stakeholder is your client. Stakeholder are your collaborative pianists or your collaborative musicians that come in and work with you. Stakeholders are your vendors,
right?
Who you buy from. So all the people who purchase your amazing products, you're part of their institutional memory, right? So it's really important that we not only look back on what we've accomplished and what we've done, but that we can look back and say, why did we make the decisions we made?
Oh, that's juicy. Yes.
Because that is where the real communication of how are we creating who we are and what this thing is going to be later. Because sometimes you make decisions in a context that is no longer your context.
Oh my gosh, yes. Yes, we just recently went through that and it was like, why are we doing this?
Yes.
And I would point out that the whole post-pandemic, like we probably, right?
Lord.
So we had to do a whole bunch of things in the pandemic to get by, to keep people safe. You know, we made oodles of new decisions, and then now we're post-pandemic. And what I love is like now we've got hybrid studios. Now people have more offers, but also like there's new things, and yeah, that's huge. That's huge.
And what do we need to let go of? You know, what fears do we need to let go of
from all of that? Yes.
Right. And I mean, barring actual trauma events, like which you just don't let go of that. But
sure.
You know, there can be things that we have put into place for reasons that no longer exist. And, you know, a really tangible example of this is like policy writing and agreement writing. You know, where there's that one family or that one kid that does the one thing that is just bonkers banana pants. And so you include in your policy, please do not pee into the bathtub or something like that, right? Like just something so awful. But then, you know, 20 years later, you're like, why is this in the policy manual?
Sure.
Right?
Sure.
And I think one thing that's great about institutional memory too is it can stop you from doing that. It can give you the understanding that like, wait, is this really a broad thing that I need to change in my business? Right. Like, is this happening so often, or am I just not comfortable having a difficult conversation? So I'm going to put it in my policy and think that my policy is going to take care of it for me. You know, and that's where it's really important because even I put things in my policies because I am uncomfortable having difficult conversations is part of your institutional memory.
Ooh, right.
That's part of your culture that you're building. And if you ever need, you know, if you have a person, you know, a stakeholder that comes in to that, what they don't know is that you're a person who is afraid to have conflict.
Right.
So they don't know how to communicate with you. They don't know how, right? It's really important to kind of be like, oh yeah, what are we doing here? And it feels esoteric, but it is highly, highly, highly practical because people spend a lot of money, just straight up capital, a lot of time and a lot of mental energy doing things that they don't necessarily need to do anymore.
Nice.
Or adding things that are inconsistent with the overall trajectory of the business. And in one-on-one service-based models, time is money. And profit margins are a thing, whether we like it or not. Mm-hmm. And so understanding that. And then honestly, lastly, practically, well, not lastly, but another thing that's really practical is your exit strategy.
Oh, yeah.
You know, and how many of us, be honest, have gone into this with an exit strategy, knowing that there's going to be an end at some point. And I love it. You know, the teacher, oh, I love it. I'm just going to teach until I die. And I'm like, are you though? But you're not going to teach the same way you did when you were 30.
Right.
You're not going to have the same workload. You're not going to be, you know, either performing as much or able to move around as much or whatever. Like, you got to figure out what the end is going to look like, friends. The end.
So I'm not just going to get up one day, walk into the forest and lie down and go to sleep forever?
I mean,
'cause that's pretty much what I was kind of planning on.
I mean, you could, but then what happens to your business? Who's going to close it up? Because someone
sleeping.
still has to. I mean, I know you won't care because you'll be all like forest fodder, but like, you know, who's going to shut up the business?
Right.
Like close shop. Who you got to close all those accounts. You got to shut down the websites. You got, you know.
I just want to speak to this. We talked about this before in another podcast, but that is exactly what happened to my mom when my dad passed, and it was so stressful. And she was not, and the investment that was supposed to be the retirement, the business being the retirement, was zero. There was nothing left. In fact, she got out lucky, not having to like pay for a lot of things like for cleanup and stuff. Like it's just, yeah, I that was not on my radar until I saw the pain and the stress and the frustration and the lack of vision of how this is going to close and how we're going to close it led to liabilities.
Yeah.
So I have a greater appreciation for that forward thinking. So I won't be walking into the forest and going to sleep. I'll have a plan and then I'll head out there.
And if you want this business to continue
right
past you, institutional memory is essential for hiring your successor.
Right.
If you can't,
I'll give it to my son. It becomes full voice baseball. Singing and baseball training.
It would be so interesting though. Oh, I just had a little thought experiment right then. I just was like, I went off into Murphy's barn. That would be so interesting. But to that end, like institutions, you can't hire someone to take over for you. You can't even give your studio members to another studio without understanding some institutional memory so that you can prepare both the students and the new studio for what that transition is going to be like.
And it's not even like it's challenging for small teams or a one person, just like it would be for an entire, like a larger business.
Absolutely.
I mean, we are a very small team and we've just welcomed Bethany into the team. She's doing some virtual assisting. And I keep forgetting that Bethany does not know.
She doesn't
know these things, and she's
not gonna know.
She's doing great, but it's one of those things where you got to slow down, have more meetings, have more conversations,
more SOPs,
SOPs,
more written documentation.
Yes, and I mean it's been great bringing Bethany in because like we're looking at our SOPs and it's like when did we write that one? We don't even have. What is that?
We don't even use that tool anymore.
Did we do that? Was that even a thing? Yeah, no. Yeah. It's that constant. And then we have a plan after Ginevra's book comes out. We are doing house cleaning, big house cleaning, and we're going through and we're like cleaning up our Notion, and we're gonna really change some of our systems, and so I'm excited about that. And Mim doesn't believe me. She's like, really, Nikki? That's what you're going to really? Because I am like squirrel. I'm like, oh, that's a shiny new idea. So they're going to hold me to it.
Yes.
Fingers crossed.
You heard it here. Right. I'm really actually very glad to hear that. It will give you better decision making.
Huge.
And I'm a big fan of like very flat leadership models.
What does that mean?
So instead of having them be very hierarchical, where like the person at the top is in charge of everything and they hold all the institutional memory, which is very easy to do when you're just yourself in a business. You're not giving kind of responsibility to anybody. You're not delegating anything. You need systems to be like your team.
Right.
You know, you need your
Right.
calendar to be your team. You need your Notion or whatever project management you're using to be your team. You need your email systems, you know, whether it's your personal email or your email marketing system, to be your team for you, because the goal, in order to actually make your life easier, is that anybody could come in and do any job other than the job that is your genius moment. And for most teachers, your genius moment is going to be that butt in the piano chair,
Teaching,
singing
sure,
or standing
yeah,
up
doing
next to
your
the board.
thing,
Like
yeah.
actually, the interaction and relationship building of the teaching is the thing that is what you really have to be doing in your business. But everything else, we want to get it to a place where anybody could do it.
Yeah. That's so hard because we hold everything so close.
know.
And that is one of the things that I've been trying to do. And in full voice, although Mim refers to me as the boss of it all, but
You're like, is this a compliment? I do
no,
not
no, actually we've
know.
had a really good,
Yeah.
we've done really well. So I am a chronic DIY, and I recognize that. So I have offloaded and empowered team members to take care and to make decisions. But Mim is like, she set a boundary. She's like, I have a line where you are still the boss of it all, and there's certain decisions I won't make. And I'm like, well, of course, right? So, but it's great because that line is like, they don't need me as much, which is nice.
That's the goal.
Which is nice.
Because full voice, no offense, but full voice music isn't Nikki Loney. Full voice music is full voice institutional memory. It is its own thing.
Right.
And you are stewarding it. You are shepherding this thing. And yeah, you raised it like a little nugget right out of your soul, but it's no longer yours.
No.
And even with one-on-one studios, if there's like one thing that I could just matrix into people, it's like, I know Kung Fu. I would just matrix into people. You are not your business.
Oh.
Your business is this whole separate institution of stuff that is so
huge.
separate from you, and you are stewarding this thing that you created.
When teachers can embrace that, there's just so much less stress because you don't have to take everything personally.
Oh, praise!
Right? That was. I think we have discussed that on the podcast several times.
Probably.
Yes, recognizing
Spiral
that,
learning, everyone. Repeat is good.
But yeah, that's huge. Now, if for our listeners, so institutional memory, somebody hasn't really thought about this and is now like, where do we start? If you're going to sit down and you're going to go, I need to really think about my institutional memory and what are my action steps? What are action steps for this?
Okay, well, I think we should do something very fun. For me, might not be fun for you.
There it is.
Be fun for
I
me.
knew that was coming.
Are
you gonna put me on the hot seat?
I am. I'm gonna put you on the hot seat. Fine. So everyone out there, if you are listening to this and you're driving, don't do anything. Just keep driving. But when you get home, or you're listening to this and you're just have some paper and pen next to you, grab it, or listen on the flip side, grab a notebook. I'm gonna take you through, Nikki, a very kind of truncated institutional memory exercise.
Oh, is that that's a thing?
Oh yeah, I've written several of them. Yes.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yes.
All right, now I'm excited.
So there's actually like a way you can do this. Questions that you ask,
Ooh,
and the
okay.
framework that I have created, which is just a framework. Nothing new under the sun. But, this understanding is I like to go through because voice teaching, alliteration. the 4 R's of memory. And so one is first we're going to remember.
Okay.
I'm going to ask you some questions.
Uh-oh. Okay.
Then number 2, we're going to release. I'm going to ask some questions.
Okay.
Reclaim.
All right.
And then resolve.
Oh, okay.
And resolve is more like resolve. Not,
oh.
but it could all, it's like you can do it all sorts of ways.
All right.
So I'm only going to ask
there's like a system here.
Yeah. So
okay.
it's
like
institutional memory in and of itself, as we have been talking about, is nonlinear, right? Like it's kind of this, I really do think of it like a sphere.
Like the circle back.
Or like, no, like, you know how
it's not like
Inside Out-
Interstellar, because that movie messed me up. Like, how do they do the math to figure out what year it's going to be when you get back to the ship? I still can't process it. So it's not like that, right?
It is not like that.
Okay.
Side note, one of my favorite parts of Endgame is when they're talking about time travel and Ant-Man is like, you mean it's not like bathtub time travel movie, or it's not this and it's not that?
Remember that.
And then Hulk is like, no, that's just the movies, man. It's like, I just love those moments in films when they're so self-referential. Anyway, so I'm trying to make linear a non-linear process.
That's fair.
Which is really what intention and question asking and, you know, that's the hardest part of business is like what we're all doing all the time is making something non-linear linear. And when you can kind of wrap your head around like business is not linear, there might be projects that are linear or like action steps that we have to do that are linear. But overall, business is always circling back and sphering and moving. I do very much think of it like that Inside Out core memory ball or like Madame Leota's head. You know, it's just in there.
It's like, I love this analogy. It's like, because we talk about this in learning, like messy learning, right?
Yes.
It's never A to B.
Never.
You don't have a conversation and get to B. And I love this. I stole it from Shannon Coates. It's like learning is like A to Jupiter to yellow dinosaur to a purple sweater. Maybe you get close to B, but then you really just got to go back to A and do it all over again. And it's just, and
there's noodles in there somewhere.
Yeah. Noodles. Yes. Noodles. But it's really, I mean, there's just so many steps along the way. And I can think honestly about how many times we've made some serious decisions and then was like, this, nope. And then
you got to go back.
You got to go back and you feel really defeated, but it's actually you had to get to the yellow dinosaur to figure out that's not where you wanted to go. Right.
We did a book club in Speakeasy. I don't know if you've read this book, and if you're a member listening, you can go back and look on the website for it, but in your member portal. But we did one on Annie Duke's Thinking in Bets.
Oh, okay.
Which is a fantastic. I love her books. She's like an ex-pro poker player turned academic person.
Interesting.
Yeah, she's great. So, but what I love, the concept that I really love that Speakeasy members can bring into their business, and anyone really, is that you can never judge a decision on its outcome. Because decisions are not a product of outcome.
Right.
Decisions are a product of taking all the information you have at the time and then auditing, do I have the information that I need to make a good decision? So good decisions are not about what winds up happening. It's about how did you use what you had control over, you know, the information you had control over. Did you get the right information at the time? And then did you make the best decision that you could based on what was in the moment? Because nobody's a fortune teller.
Right.
And no one's a fortune teller, number one. And number two, you can't control so many things outside of that decision. You can make the best decision in the world. Right. And then the world shuts down. You can make the best decision in the world, solid, supposed to be great. And then, you know, finale decides to be done with everything. You know what I mean? Like it wasn't a bad decision to choose finale.
No. Right.
Right. It's like, oh, I wish I didn't do that. It's like, why? It gave you everything you needed.
In the moment.
Yeah. So I'm going to take you through shortened version that I made just for you based on what I know about you. So it's going to be
no.
super uncomfortable.
Dang.
Super uncomfortable.
All right, I'm ready.
Ooh. Okay, so first we're going to remember. Tell me about a time, the first time you did the thing, your very first sale of a full voice
Oh.
book. Like that's that's because that's what that was the goal, right? Was
Right.
to write the book. So the first time, the first Canadian dollar.
Okay. We had been doing test groups, and we'd printed up out of pocket all these books for our students, and it was getting to the point where it was expensive to print them. So I wanted to charge my students just a small fee to cover the cost. So I was working at a education center, and I asked the manager, I'm like, "Can I sell these to my students?" And she's like, "Well, you have to sell them through the store." And I was like, "Oh, okay." And then it was like kind of like it went really fast. It was like I was just supposed to sell them to my students, but then the music purchaser was like, "These are really cool, and I'm gonna call the store in Waterloo and see if they want a couple." So it kind of caught me off guard. So it was they're like, "I just wanted to sell these to my students." But then they kind of took off. So that would have been like my first core memory of like, oh, other people want to buy these right now.
And what feeling did you have associated with that memory?
Just I'm not ready. That's my small T trauma. I'm never ready. Like, these aren't good enough. These aren't good enough. I was just we just finished testing them for 2 years. But yeah, so it was that.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So for the point of the exercise, I'm going to address that now. What we would normally do is go through the entire exercise. I'd have notes, you'd have notes, and then we would have a separate session to talk about it.
Okay.
So the very first core memory you have of this now becoming what it is filled with fear.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
Right?
I mean, there was excitement there. Of course. It kind of was like, oh, this could be a thing.
Right.
This could be a thing. It wasn't just total fear, but I also felt like I had fallen down a flight of stairs and
right. So what we would do with institutional memories, we would say, how does that feeling in that moment, how has it affected all the decisions that I made after it? Right? Mm-hmm. How many decisions have I made out of falling down a stairs excitement? Right? Or I'm not ready.
Right.
And you just observe it. You're not judging it. You're just observing it, right, over time. So, okay, let's remember something else. What was the first major technological change you made in your business, and why did you make that change?
Oh, okay. Yes. So that's a good question. I was using a very teeny tiny used $200 laptop, and my husband had found like open source programs that were okay, but they had limitations. And because, things like Adobe Photoshop and all of those programs were expensive back then. And especially since I wasn't, set up in any way. So no, I think the biggest thing was we had to invest in like programs, proper equipment. I started to seriously look at like laptops and what I needed to do for like artwork and design and stuff. And we went from having kind of used open source bootleg programs. And then it was like, no, we're doing this for real. Like our first books were done in Word, Microsoft Word. They weren't even done in a publishing, like a desktop publisher. We didn't, because those were thousands of dollars back then, right? So we did our layout of the first books in Word. So our first big transition was actually getting the proper software, both Finale. I think I invested in Sibelius, and Mim was already using Finale. So I had to purchase Sibelius. I had to purchase, was it InDesign?
Oh my God, InDesign.
So was it?
That's
Yeah.
yeah.
And it was like it felt painful. Like it felt like
Yeah.
because I mean even with an educational license, Sibelius was like $300-400.
Yeah.
And then, the InDesign, or I think it was InDesign. I can't remember. So again, it was just leveling up with professional programs, and
Yeah.
then, spending money on a $400 used laptop instead of the little $200 used laptop. So it was like that. So it was software. It was software and equipment.
Okay.
Yeah.
And backing up, kind of reflecting on that, what feelings were associated with all of that?
Oh, that was just I felt that I was like making myself more vulnerable because we were expending all this money. We weren't making any money, right? So these were like upfront costs, and there wasn't like enough sales in like
Yeah.
to pay off that stuff. So
Did you have an understanding? This is not in the script, but I'm just curious. So did you have an understanding at that time that kind of upfront cost was like exactly what happens with businesses? Like that's
I
what
did.
you're
I did.
supposed.
Yes,
I mean,
my father, God bless him. I miss you, Dad. My parents were self-employed.
Yeah.
And he would just laugh, right? Because he's like we got a $100,000 loan, and I was like,
Yeah.
right? So yeah, no, my dad kind of chuckled along the way because really these are not, looking back, I mean, really a program, and of course David Rose, they're write-offs.
But who pays for this?
The write-off people.
The write-off people. Right? That's awesome. I love that your dad I think he was here last night actually in spirit with us, but I love that your dad kind of was just like, "Oh, honey."
Oh, no,
like,
true.
just,
Well,
just
even
chuckling a little bit. at
even when I went to my first trade show, right? Like when I was like, "Oh my gosh, it's so expensive. They want this much for the table. They
and
want
was he
this
just
much."
laughing?
He was laughing because he used to have to go to like international trade shows and actually install a wet cleaning unit that worked on the spot.
floor.
So he had electrical, water. He had to have running water. He's like, Nikki, it cost me $20,000 just to set up my booth. And he's like, you're worried about a $400 table? And I'm like, yes.
Yeah. I mean, revenue is revenue.
Right.
We all can do different things with different amounts of it.
So yeah, no, I thankfully I always had that this is normal. Like it doesn't, and please stop complaining about it because like really it's peanuts. So I did have that in my ear.
Yeah, that's good. Okay, next question for remembering.
Mm-hmm.
I'm actually going to change this question a little bit from what I wrote because I think
I
think it's going to be a better question.
Okay.
So tell me about the first time you experienced. You kind of alluded to it earlier, actually. The first time you experienced when a client couldn't read your mind.
Oh, Mim and I were invited to like a music read through, and they invited us to do like a little mini 5-minute presentation on what the workbooks were. And because there was no vocal workbooks and there was a lot of general music teachers there, our messaging was like nobody got it. Like it was, and it was really disheartening. Right. I'd love to blame it on that they were all classroom teachers, but like essentially like the concept of a singing book was this is like over 20 years ago, right?
Right.
So, and even the organizers of the event were kind of unsure about what we were trying to do. And that was like our very first, here's our books and these are for singers. And I mean, we just didn't have our messaging down.
Yeah.
Right. So it was like, it was like a probably a good place to realize that our message was not what it needed to be.
Yeah.
And right.
That's a perfect example though of institutional memory going south, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like of course we all understand what this is. Like how can this not make sense in
Can I add to that?
Yes.
One of the other
course.
institutional memories where people did not understand was when we first started selling the workbooks. It was piano teachers that embraced them before voice teachers.
Right, because they were used to you.
They were
like, of course, this makes total sense.
And they were looking for that, right? Like they were like, well, yeah, we have these piano books and it's all there. And then, but the challenge for them is that we never put repertoire in our books. And then we're like, well, what are we supposed to do?
Yeah.
Right. And then it was the conversation of, we can't put repertoire in the book because of what repertoire for a singer is. And it's so personalized. Like I can't put a book with a bunch of songs in here without it it wouldn't be viable, right? But nobody understood that, right? Because they were just looking for the cookie cutter, not cookie cutter, but like the all-in-one, here's your singing lesson kind of book, which I don't think should exist.
Yeah. It would make a lot of money though.
But it wouldn't work.
So this is great. This is why.
Yeah.
Right? This is why. Just because something makes money doesn't mean that it's worth making money. Okay. Last question of this section, remember section.
Okay.
Is tell me 3 things you'd tell beginning of your business you that you wish you had known about starting a business. In other words, what would current Nikki say to starting Nikki?
Well, just circling back, don't worry about those initial investments. They were really peanuts and so necessary. Like we were blocked, right? I would also say start asking for help. That was a big one. Like I felt, and I know a lot of voice teachers feel like this, like we have to have all the answers, that we have to know what we're doing. I wish, well, I mean, we've talked about that. I wish I met you like 10 years prior, right? Because there was a lot of just things I didn't know. And, yeah, so I would encourage my past self to really do a deeper dive on the business mindset of things. Now, in all fairness, I was still running a full-time teaching studio while creating the books. So, yeah, I think that would be, and you need 3 things that I would tell myself. Ask for help, invest in training. When I started taking online courses about marketing and business, like doors blew open.
Yeah.
Right. And my confidence skyrocketed. And third thing I would tell them.
Well, you said the thing about don't worry about the investments.
Yeah, don't worry about the investments.
Yeah.
Like investment, you need to, if you want to do something, you got to investments. And that, I mean, again, when I first started, it was hand to mouth, right? Like most, people just getting started with their business, and every little penny that you have to hand out seems to be so painful, but it really isn't.
Yeah.
There was a rabbi that I followed. Rabbi Daniel Lapin.
Oh, yeah.
He wrote a book. I have a story. This is such a cool story. He wrote a book called Prophet. Oh my Lord. It was basically a book about money mindset. It was about why people struggle so much, why we think earning like a profit is evil and stuff. And his first chapter was just literally about that. And that was a huge, huge like breakthrough for me. So I had been listening to him I found him on the radio, and then I started listening to him. And every time he got up to talk, he was so positive and about money, and money is culture, and the
Yes.
exchange of money. And that was something I had never heard my entire life. So, I loved his book so much that I told a whole bunch of my friends about it. And I like my musician friends, you got to read this book, right? It's making money is not evil, and
Yes.
why we struggle with it. So I told so many people. I told my friend Chris, and Chris actually met Rabbi Lapin and was actually trying to get him to come up to Canada to do a presentation on his book.
Yeah.
And Rabbi Lapin asked him, so how did you find out about me? He's like, my friend Nikki Loney, and she told me about this book and da-da-da-da. So I have a signed copy of his book from Rabbi Lapin. Yeah, so that was huge. That was like, and I would put that under the getting help, like ask for help, ask questions, do more reading outside of the voice teaching and the pedagogy stuff.
Amen.
So
I love, it's interesting. Side note, not part of the thing. I love that you were like, get training. And like in my mind, I was like, oh God, what is she going to say about? But then you were like, get training about what you're trying to do.
Right.
Like get training about business, get training about marketing. And this is something that, oh God, Nikki, I swear, I'm just like, I don't understand why people will spend tens of thousands of dollars on continuing education on how to teach and have zero to baseline if you're lucky, knowledge on how to turn that, which is essentially your offer, your product, your amazingness, into cash flow. None. And it just drives, it really puts my jaw on the floor that we still have so many people in the arts who believe that if you're good, you're going to make money.
Yeah.
That is not, your goodness does not make you money. It does not. There are people 10 times shittier than you right now making 10 times more money than you only because they have a better understanding of marketing and sales and business.
Right.
And you're losing out because you're like prideful and think that your ticket to success is knowing more about singing.
Right.
Or knowing more about guitar or knowing more about whatever you need to know about. And I'm like, yes, those things are all good and well and wonderful after because what I'm hearing you say, bringing it back to institutional memory, what I'm hearing you say is that this is what we had. So we did a growth edge move and then we turned it into this. And then we were able to make the product better, the offer better. And then we spent the money getting the training and we made the offer better. And then we spent the money on the marketing and we made the offer better. So it was like you took what you had, you made money with it, and then you used that money to sell more of the thing so that you could fund getting better at the thing. Not, I'm going to spend all this money. Like you didn't say I bought the $2,000 laptop and the complete thing and, the highest level of all. Like, that's not what we're talking about here. We're not talking about like spending $50,000 on your home studio when you have no idea how to monetize it. Right? We're talking about, okay, you know that you need to learn how to teach this specific genre. You take one class at it. And then you monetize that. And then you're like, oh, I want to learn some more. So you take another class and then you monetize that. And then but this, like, it's gotta be back and forth. It can't be like eons
of pedagogy,
whether it's vocal pedagogy or just general, it can't be eons of anatomy and physiology and no way to monetize it.
Right. I remember the name of the book. Thou Shall Prosper. That's the name of
I love it.
Rabbi Lapin's book. Thou Shall Prosper was like, that was like probably, I was ready for that book. The business message in it and the money making message in it was huge. And that was a flip for me. It was like, okay. So yeah.
I love that. Okay. I'm sorry. You were going to say
I was going to say,
let's go.
I'm worried about the next section.
Oh, no. This is good. So section number 2 is called release.
Okay.
And so this is when we're kind of thinking about, this would normally happen up after way more remember. Like we would be.
Oh, sure.
Right. So, but we're doing truncated
Okay.
podcast version. Okay.
I'm ready.
What tool, system, or stakeholder no longer serves the business?
Tool, service, or
Tool, system, or stakeholder. So this would normally be 3 separate questions, right? Like what tool, what system or procedure, and then what person or vendor or something like that.
Serves. Well, system, it took us a while to find a good system, and we were not communicating well for many reasons. So we had to kind of shake that rug out and go, this isn't working. We're not doing that. Being casual with communication in the team. So like, for example, Sean would come in and drop a hard drive on my desk and go files on there. And then I'd go in there and be like, some jokey title about what the file is. And I'd be like, okay, no. We need to have filing name systems because I don't know where your file is and I don't know what you called it and stuff.
Yeah.
So we had to get serious with systems. So what did we get rid of? Just a casual attitude.
This isn't remember.
This is remember.
This is right now.
Right now. Oh,
what
right now.
What do you need to release right now?
What do we release right now?
You don't have to say, because sometimes this one you like think of it and you're like,
I can't.
I gotta process through that.
No, I know who I have to release.
Okay.
We have to release our middleman distributor here in Canada. Like that's been on my to-do list for a long. Like we don't need to give most of our profits to a company that just ships it out. Like, and it also it's dumb because we're shipping and then they're shipping. So and also, we have created a system that would make it easy for people to order from us wholesale, and I need to pull the trigger on that.
Yeah. When you say that, what comes up for you?
You know what? It's just it's just one of those things I keep pushing down because right now it's just convenient. They make a big order, but it's just profit wise, it just doesn't make sense. And we want to keep the industry has changed. Print music industry has changed. Like back in the day, we were told you're never ever gonna make it into any kind of U.S. market. You're too small. You don't have the money. And I'm like, internet happened, and then that wasn't the case. And then of course, building your own website is not limited to big corporations anymore. So 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 we've been told all along that we would never ever ever have those things. So when so I think it's just so what was I trying to say? The industry has changed where you don't have to buy in to get your stuff into the big stores, right? Like, and because we are so niche, we didn't really have that much hard time getting a distributor and all of those things. And because a lot of our customers are like independent teachers, we would have to raise our cost of our prices a lot in order to navigate retail wholesale discounts.
Yeah.
Which would mean that the little teacher who is just buying 4 or 5 books for their students is the one that ends up paying the most.
Yeah.
We don't buy into that market.
Right.
Like, we don't do that anymore. Right. Like, it's just, I refuse to raise my prices so some retailer can get a discount. So.
Right. Going to raise the prices, then it needs to have a direct impact on making the business better.
Right. And I truly believe that, with, Amazon and all, like, I don't have to fight for, like, the retailer isn't promoting my books, and having my books in their store isn't really an asset to me like it might have been 10, 15, 20 years ago.
So what is stopping you?
It's just one of those things where I got to have like that. It's not me, it's you.
So
conversation.
the difficult conversation.
It's a difficult conversation, yeah. Which I will be doing soon.
Okay. You heard it here, folks.
I heard it here.
Okay.
Which I guess, obviously, because this is coming out we're releasing this in November, so.
Ooh. You could, maybe there'll be a little add-on. I did it, by the way. Okay. Question number 2.
Okay.
What narrative story you tell yourself about the business keeps the business smaller than you'd like it to be?
Ooh, you know what? Thank you for that. And we're like, we're a little Canadian business. And the thing is, it should be, we're a Canadian business. Like, I should have put the maple syrup out on the table. I have made Michelle have so much maple syrup, and she now has it in her coffee.
That's why I'm smiling so much and so sweet.
Yeah, I think that, we played the niche, right? Which we are such a very specific niche, what we do.
Yeah.
And, just today in the meeting with Mim, we were like talking about some business things and stuff. And she's like, people will say to me, oh, like, why are you doing that in your business? And she'll be like, we're just musicians playing Office. And I was like, but we aren't.
Oh, Mim.
Right?
Mim.
Right. But at first I laughed. I'm like, I know. Right. But then I thought, no. We have done the work. And I have a team of experts outside of Full Voice that I can consult. I have a great lawyer. I love him. And a great accountant. And lots of friends who are business people. And just for the record, not throwing shade on any of my friends, like, they don't know what's going on half the time either. They're learning stuff. Like, everybody is. So yes, I would like to say that what's keeping us small is we're just from Canada, and 2, we're just a bunch of musicians trying to figure this out. And we are not going to do that in the future.
I love it. Wow, you like skipped already to resolve.
Right?
I love it. Okay.
Awesome.
Question number 3. What institutional memory or concept or company culture point? So like, what is something about the business that kind of everyone, that's how it runs here, would you like to be different?
That's something that we're already working on, which is we are super serious about SOPs now. Like, SOPs, like the first, SOPs, I've watched a couple of videos. I'm like, we should have some SOPs. And then you kind of half-ass them, and you're like, yeah, we do this, this, and this. But with a new team member now, with one of the things that's really frustrating is that we can't get products out faster, right? Like, it's like, for now, granted that our products have to go through a lot of testing, right? Like, we don't just like, here's a new, like Bethany tested those animal flashcards like all summer long with all ages, right? So yeah, SOPs, like really being serious. And then I raise my hand. I am the worst for actually following the SOP. I know, I'm like a free spirit. It's like, woo, look at this shiny thing and stuff. So I have told my team that they have permission to keep me on task, and dare I step a toe out of line on the SOP, that they can rail me back in.
Good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Giving your team the strength to call you back into what you're supposed to be doing is very powerful, especially if there is some institutional memory about you being the boss of the boss, right?
Yes.
Like if there is a culture of really Nikki's in charge and we're her minions, rather than their shared responsibility, shared decision making, it's good to break that down. I think that's awesome. Okay. So here's your tell me 3 things question.
Okay.
You kind of talked about worry and the way you answered the last one. So I don't
Maybe
know.
it's there.
I don't know if I'll ask it and then we can decide if we're going to do it. But basically, tell me 3 things you'd tell beginning of your business you that you wish you had known not to worry about in business. So what would current Nikki say to past Nikki about worry specifically?
Well, it's all there. I mean, the fear and the worry is always a thing. So I would tell her not to worry about, well, my biggest, one of my, like, you have enough time. And when I say that, I'm like, oh, my stomach just went because I'm like, do I really? I don't. We should be working right now. I'm going to have to go for a run and then work. But
is this podcast wasting our time?
Right? We got to talk faster. No, that is one of my biggest in therapy conversations. It's about running out of time. And there's lots to that. Having a child later in life and then not being able to have more children, right? My dad passing.
Yes.
And also, I mean, just I got married later in life. I had I always feel that I have missed the boat.
Wow.
So I would tell younger me that you have lots of time. I'm just going to say this now. I'm going to go personal land. So we've already gotten the emails from the baseball academies. Noah's only 14 and there's baseball academies in Canada where the kids go and they are billeted and they it's intensive training.
It's time.
And I have I wasn't ready for it. I knew it was a thing. I thought it would be grade 12. I had it in my brain that I had a few more years, try to do some special things with Noah, try to connect with him, And then we got the email and it was like, yeah, we'd like him next year. And I was like, I screwed up. I'm a bad mom. I didn't have enough time. And I cried all the way to the osteopath, all the way home from the osteopath. I'll be making mac and cheese. So, time.
Don't worry about time.
Don't worry about time.
You have time.
There's time.
Yeah.
But in that as well, and this is more of a mindfulness thing.
Yeah.
Is the time that you have, if you are present, then good on you. If you're just not paying attention, then you missed out, right? So it's that. So that's what I would tell my future self, to not worry about time. You have enough time.
And to be mindful with.
And to take all those moments and with children, right? Yeah. The days are long, but the years are fast, right?
Yeah. Or the days are long and the years are short, indeed. Oh, man. Sometimes I feel that way even about business, though.
Right?
Just institutional memory. It's like, oh, my God. It was in 2017 that we were sitting in your kitchen, but your kitchen was in Hamilton. There were cords coming through. Do you remember that from the basement?
They were, Sean got the basement window and fed it through the dining room window. Yes.
So that we could talk right then.
Yeah.
And just every day, those days that just feel long and you're crying and is this going to work? And I got to stay committed and just know that there are good days and bad days. And then here we are, hanging out in Nova Scotia, talking about business.
Talking about the business.
I love it.
Wearing toques.
Which I called toques earlier today. And Sean was like, toques? I was like, no, not those. But okay. Okay, third section. Reclaim. Yeah, so again, this would normally be a much longer process, but now we're going to reclaim. So are there any systems or tools that you'd like to bring back again now that you have more knowledge?
Systems or tools?
Or stakeholders. I just left that out.
I can't think of any.
Okay.
I honestly can't think of anything.
That's fine. You don't have to. There's no...
that I'd like to bring back.
Like an old way you would market or an old...
No.
Great.
Not at the moment.
I love it.
There.
Great. No. That is not a wrong answer, by the way. And there are no right or wrong answers.
Thank you for clarifying. I feel less pressure now.
Well, I mean, because I know someone's out there being like, did she answer it right? It's like, calm down, teacher pants. No right or wrong answers. Okay. What are some things that have been lost as your business has grown? Lost not necessarily meaning bad.
I don't know if it's a growth related thing. I recently was able to go back to Toronto for a few things, and Mim and I actually got to work in the same room, and it was glorious. It was glorious. So maybe that's one system I would change, is more in person, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, it was like we literally spread out everything we were working on a table. She had her laptop, I had my laptop. That's how we used to work. Like it was like in the room, boom, 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 and it was glorious. So I guess, I mean, that, having more in person, in addition to the systems that we're creating as an online, everybody's in a different time zone type of thing.
Yeah. Yes. The follow-up question to that you already answered, which was like, what of those things would you like to bring back? So now the productivity, just from a business perspective, there are these moments of productivity that can be really powerful when we're in the same room.
Yeah.
How can we build that into twice a year, once a quarter, like that kind of stuff. So that's awesome. That's the kind of stuff, right? I feel that way too with in-person team stuff. It's like, wow, what you can get done is like bonkers pants when people are in the same room and you know what you're going to talk about.
Yeah.
And it's not all just
toking.
No. Okay. Where
Toques
and tokes. There would be like a smoke shop. Toques and tokes.
It's probably
amazing.
It's probably
We've got business ideas everywhere.
Hamilton.
Okay. Next question. Where do you see areas of opportunity to communicate the institutional memory of the business to all of its stakeholders?
I would like to do more kind of behind the scenes videos, because it's really fabulous. Like, obviously we live in a beautiful place.
It's pretty amazing, Nikki.
And but like Sean the studio, like he does so much in there, and or even just Mim, like doing her thing. I think what I love about my team is people do what they love, right?
Yeah.
Like everybody in my team is like working to their strengths, working what they love, and I adore that. So I think I would love, and we have a lot of fun. Like our Tuesday meetings are called What the Fork meetings, and like so we have like this culture of like we're not, it's like when we get songs from our composers, we had to come up with a system to like, we've received your song, we can't look at it now, we have to have a music meeting later, and then we have like a process of vetting the songs to see which one might go in a songbook, which one might go as a single song download. So we came up with song jail.
Right.
So when you send us a song, I send this, and it's got like a cute little cart, like a little graphic with like a piece of sheet music behind. So like there's we create children's music and
Yes.
play-based learning is at the heart of our stuff. So I would love people to see kind of the behind the scenes of that and like that kind of fun.
Yeah.
And so, you know, and then our vetting process is like, you know, hell yes. Yes. Meh. Hard pass.
Hard pass.
So, and again, I mean, no disrespect to our composers. Our composers are incredible,
Yeah.
but we know if we have a specific project, what we're looking for. So it's like that, right? So, yeah. So that is, you know, and even just like the flashcards we just did, right? So, you know, Bethany's like, we need to have a movement card. And I'm like, you know, of course I work late because I love working, and I'm sitting there and I may have had a glass of wine, and I'm like, movement. And then we came up with like the mosquito card because, you know, mosquitoes. And I'm like, that's hilarious. And then, of course, I have to text the whole team and go, what about a mosquito card? And then like, so it's just that play. It's fun. It's fun. And I would love people to know that we get 100% into things. And if we don't have fun, I made my printer and her husband, who are not singers, not musicians, play the Forest Adventure cards. And they freaking loved it. And I'm like,
it's a game.
It's a game. That's a test right there. If adults can go, I'm going to sing this little melody and have some fun with it. So like we and Katrina helps us with that too. Oh my gosh. So our printer, graphic print in Etobicoke, Katrina loves the little fun stuff. She's like, I love the artwork. Like she's like, you got to have t-shirts with like all the cool artwork on it. And you got to do this. And she does the t-shirts and stuff. But she'll come up with great ideas. Like she came up with the packaging for the cards. She's like, well, if you do it like this, then you can show this artwork here. So the whole team knows that what we do is fun and creative, and it is in our culture. It's in our meetings. We all have fun. You know, we do fun things. I would like people to know, and maybe we need to do more behind the scenes kind of videos or TikToks or whatever.
Yeah, or include some of that in the books.
Right.
Like a little forward or something, or, you know, jokes that happened while making this book.
The one thing that we do with Noah, and we've done since he's little, is we'll go. I did it with Sean the other day in the bookstore. So so we'll always pick up a book with a title like, you know, what was the one?
Learning to Listen.
Learning to Listen, right? Learning to Listen. It's like it's one of the Buddhist books. And I'm like, I gave it to Sean. I'm like, hold it up. Pretend that you're studying it really hard. And then I take pictures. So I have a picture of Noah holding a book. It's at the back of the teacher's guide with a little dedication. It's like difficult mothers. And he's like, he's looking away like, huh. And then I have one where I'm holding a book. It's like, kids are worth it. And I'm like,
good.
So yeah, so there,
those kinds of things.
Yeah.
So bringing in that playfulness, where can you do that more in like your processes? Where can it be shown in the design of the website? Where can it be shown in just your continued marketing? You know, in this fantastic podcast, we've had a very fun time.
Right. Actually, on our bio page on the website, we did something fun. We did like we did like strengths, weaknesses, passions, stuff like that. So like
food that gives you gas,
right? So I think my weaknesses are like remembering birthdays, because I don't like, I never remember birthdays. And also storm chips. Storm chips are what you have in Nova Scotia. Everybody goes out and buys potato chips when there's going to be like a nor'easter.
Okay,
it's just the thing. Got to have your storm chips.
Okay.
So, yeah.
And you don't buy them? Is that what the weakness is?
I buy them and eat them. Even if, like, on a beautiful day like this, we should have some storm
chips.
You
know what? After this podcast, we're going to get some chips. I love it. Okay. Tell me 3 things future you would say to current you about your business. So, and what you want to move forward on. So, in other words, what does future Nikki, say to current Nikki about what to move forward on? This kind of requires some second and third order thinking. Where you're like, what could...
They will never find the body.
I was wondering if you were going to do that.
They will never find the body. Don't worry about it.
I love it.
Okay, future Nikki, what would she tell? Future Nikki would probably tell me that you have enough time.
Okay.
Because she'd be like, yo, I know what you're doing. Future Nikki would tell me to not play it small. Stop playing it small. I think we've established that we know what we're doing and we've found our people and we can, it's easy to fall back into, like we were talking earlier, like, oh, we're just from Canada. We have to like endure really cold temperatures. Like we're tough. What would future Nikki tell? Probably to not work as much as she does. Take more breaks.
Yeah.
Take more breaks. Future Nikki would be like, you need to take more breaks.
Yeah.
Because I tend to work too long and I get really, really tired. And then, but when I do take a break, I'm like, why didn't I do that? Take more breaks. That's
Seriously.
Go on vacation.
To that end, I'm always, that's kind of another thing that makes me go like, is how essential rest is for productivity. So it's like this weird belief that people have that working more is productive.
Oh, we've all done it. Oh my gosh. I'm a new teacher. I'm going to teach, 500 students a week and more is better. More like I've
not.
I mean, we did a podcast about moving to 45 minutes and people are like, no, I can teach more students in 30 minutes. And it's like, is more better, right? But it's hard. That's is that hustle culture though? That's hustle culture.
But to me,
unproductive hustle culture.
Yeah. To me, I think when I think of hustle culture, I think of like dedication. I think of you're doing what you need to do. You're sacrificing the things that are appropriate to sacrifice when you need to sacrifice them. And you got your eye on the prize. And you're like, that's the direction I'm going. Right? I think a lot of people think hustle culture is just like farting around and finding out to the detriment of their own selves. Right? Like work. More. You know, I don't actually think that that's what the real hustle is. I think the real hustle is the consistency instead of the
quantity over quality.
Yeah.
No, quality over quantity.
Right. Well, that's what I would say. That's right. Like you switch those.
Right.
You know, I don't really mind hustle culture. I mind productivity culture. Like that everything has to be productive all the time without recognizing that that's actually really not very productive because your brain needs processing time. It needs resting time. So to your point of taking lots of breaks, resting, knowing when to stop, like when you feel that moment of like, I have hit a wall, the best thing for you to do is to acknowledge that and not try to do more.
Right.
Like pushing through as a rule is just going to make you have a...
That's what future Nikki would tell them.
Great.
Like, stop pushing through that wall.
Awesome. So far, so good. We have one section left and 2 questions.
Okay.
How you feeling?
Good. They'll never find the body. I'm feeling
I know.
good.
You're feeling great. Okay. So this section is resolve.
Okay.
And this is like, what are resolving? What are we resolving to do? Making this so. You've already discussed a little bit about this, but this is kind of your stake in the ground. What changes do you commit to making in your business based on this exercise?
Oh. Well, setting more time boundaries.
Okay.
Right. knowing that, I can go for a beautiful walk this afternoon and I don't have to answer those emails right away.
Indeed.
Planning for more in-person working things. I'm really excited about that. Getting together with Mim was just, we laughed and just, it really brought some projects together. So
Great.
I would like to, in the budget.
Yes, that's what we mean.
in the business budget, there is either I go to Toronto, Mim comes here, or whatever, more in-person team meetings.
Love it.
Yeah. That would be definitely one of them. What am I?
Distributor.
Oh, yes. I have to say goodbye to a wonderful business relationship that no longer serves me.
Yeah.
Us.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
There.
We'll check in a few minutes.
Sweating.
I know. Are you all right?
Oh my God.
I know. So I'm really proud of you doing this in front of God and everybody. So, but this kind of, this is what it is. This is how you do this, is you think through what are we creating and what can grow and change. So to this point of growing and changing, the last question we will leave you with on resolve is how did this discussion show you where you can grow in being a better leader for your business?
Oh, okay. So, this discussion touched on a lot of the things that have already started happening and the results that we're seeing from them. So one of them, me, although my title, as Mim jokes, is boss of it all, I have empowered my team to make more decisions and to work. We have really stepped up our SOPs and really started to organize how we use our online stuff. Yeah. And just recognizing again, because I'm bad, that I am like a list checker and then I'm on to the new project.
Yeah.
And we talked about this in a podcast. I don't remember which one, which was reflecting on your year and find, right?
Oh, yeah.
Remember we did it in it was a New Year's
That's right.
podcast.
Yeah.
So as a chronic achiever,
yeah,
I'm always looking ahead and looking at the new things, and I don't circle back and I don't celebrate enough what we've accomplished. I really need to, do that more.
Yeah. I love that you're going to do that. And just reflect, even as an achiever, because I have lots of achievers in my life. I am not one of them, but I am not motivated by achievement. I'm motivated by looking back and saying look what I did. Right. Whereas other people, achiever personalities, Clifton Strengths is motivated by the action of achieving. Yeah. Right. So, I'm motivated by sitting back and enjoying what I've done.
I love that.
Well, it makes me not do. Sometimes it's hard to get things done though, right? Because I'm not.
Interesting.
It's look at all this other thing I did. Oh, no, I gotta do this too, right? So, it's just.
It's funny, eh?
It's really funny.
It's so funny. And I love these exercises because you look at your strengths, you look at your weaknesses, and you realize they just bounce off of each other,
do.
right? Like you said, being an achiever means getting stuff done. And I will literally shove people out of my way to get my list done. But then it's then you get stuck because you haven't reflected back on how far you've come. So it's every strength has another side.
Of course,
to it, right?
I call it. You're not supposed to call it this, but I do. I call it the dark side and the light side,
right?
Of the Clifton Strengths.
Well, and it's funny too with achiever. Sometimes one of our dark side things is we just get frustrated with other humans that don't move as fast as we do.
100%. And people, do you have strategic
I'm so
too?
sorry. Yes.
Yes. Yeah, strategic too is one of those where it's why don't you see how this is going to happen? Why do I have to explain it to you?
Right?
Yes.
Yes. And my last, at the bottom of my Clifton Strengths is empathy.
Well, that doesn't mean
an includer. It's
yeah.
Do you really need to invite those people over here?
Well, they're not just because they're at the bottom doesn't mean they're weaknesses. They're just not the way that you move through the world naturally.
No.
That's awesome. I love it. Okay, so what we just did today was what you said. Well, what's the practical thing that we do?
Can you run through those
Yep.
steps again? So for our
Absolutely.
teachers that are listening.
Yes. So
and watching.
Grab your paper and your pen.
Well, actually, you know what? I'll put these in the show notes.
Sure.
So I'll put these in the show notes, but let's just go through them one more time.
Yeah. So the first thing you're doing is you're remembering. And I just happened to give Nikki 4 questions based on what I know about her business and what would be a good question. So we asked, tell me the first time you sold the thing.
Mm-hmm.
What was the first major technological change? Then when was the last time a stakeholder couldn't read your mind? And then the 3 things, what would current Nikki say to past Nikki about starting a business? Then second, we go to the release. Are there chipmunks?
There's birds
falling
out of the sky.
Those birds falling out of the sky.
The chickadees have arrived.
I love it.
Little chickadee. Mm-hmm. Okay, continue. Sorry.
Okay, 2, release. And that's when we, I gave Nikki 4 questions. Again, this would usually be a lot longer. What tool, system, or stakeholder no longer serves you? What narrative, the story that you tell yourself about the business keeps the business smaller than you'd like it to be? Mm-hmm. What institutional memory or concept or company culture point would you like to be different? Mm-hmm. And then the 3 things question, what would current Nikki say to past Nikki about worry? What worrying about? Then we went into the 3rd section, which was reclaim. So we were remembering, then we were letting things go, and then we were like bringing things back. Reclaim. Are there any systems or tools that you'd like to bring back and use again now that you have more knowledge? Was the first question. Second question, what are some things that have been lost as your business has grown? With the follow-up, what of those would you like to bring back? Third question, where do you see areas of opportunity to communicate the institutional memory of the business to all the stakeholders? And then the 4th question was the future Nikki, past Nikki. So what does future Nikki say to current Nikki about what to move forward on? And so we did that. We remembered. We let go of some things that didn't need to be there anymore. We brought in some things that need to come back. And then we made decisions. We resolved. Mm-hmm. So 4th, we resolve. And we just did 2 questions in this again. The first one was, what changes do you commit to making in your business based on this exercise? And second, how did this discussion show you where you can grow as being a better leader? And if we have time, I'd like to just really apply this to like the solo business person. Because I can imagine you're out there and you're going, well, yeah, but there's this big company with a team and lots of moving parts. And I'm just in my studio with 20 students a week. When you take time to answer questions like this, you're giving yourself an opportunity to, again, not only learn where you can be delegating and where you can be streamlining, but where you can get more of your time freedom back. And for the one-on-one business owner, for you out there that is the one-on-one owner, the number one thing that you have that employees do not have is time freedom. You have control over your time. And that is really why we choose to be entrepreneurial. Right. We choose to be small business owners, is that we want to have a relationship with time that is different than what an employee culture relationship with time or a corporate culture relationship with time is. But we find ourselves just becoming little mini corporations in the way that we behave. There are some great things that we can take from corporate culture, like understanding there's an institutional memory, understanding SOPs that should be a thing, understanding, high quality communication, being your own HR department and making sure you're looking out for both the employee and the business, right? Those are good things, but there are other things like strict scheduling, putting yourself on a timeline that is stressful. How many times are you being the boss to yourself where you're saying you need to stay late and finish this?
Sure.
where you would never ever stand for that if you were in a
If you were
corporate,
working for something
right?
else.
If
Wow,
you were in a
yeah.
corporate environment. And then on the flip side, where are you? It's 11 o'clock. Why are you late? I need you in the office right now. How many times do we get up early or do things at a time based on like our perceived notions? So take these questions. Ask yourself, what culture have I built in my house around my family?
Ooh.
What have I communicated about my business to my family, to my clients? And how is that affecting the way I communicate with my husband or my partner or my wife or my spouse? How is it affecting the way that I decide what I'm going to do with my kids if I have kids? Or what if I'm taking care of a caretaker of someone or elderly parents or something? Like, how has this culture that I've developed around what my business is going to be been positive for my stakeholders, or maybe needs to be looked at again? These are things. What did you used to do that you miss doing? The pandemic kind of put a kibosh on live performances, kind of could have put a kibosh on live things. What kind of live things did you love doing the live things, but you didn't love the work involved? How can you change it?
Sure.
How can you bring that back? What can you release? What's no longer Are there clients in your studio right now that you are holding on to that because you have like an emotional attachment to them or an obligation to them, or there's some weird codependent thing going on, which happens in every studio because this is one-on-one high-touch service-based, like, lest we all be fooled.
Right.
We all have long-term, right? What do we need to get rid of? Where are we making things more complicated than they need to be?
Sure.
And this just gives you such freedom, which is what your goal is anyway.
Yeah.
Time freedom, financial freedom.
Isn't it funny how we became our own bosses to have more freedom, but then we end up just having less time than
We're
ever?
in sheet music jail.
Song prison.
Song prison. We're in entrepreneur prison. And I agree with you. We do that. And I don't know. I mean, I know that it's connected with the overall belief in most Western cultures that your value is inherently connected to the amount of work you do.
Right.
We know that.
Right.
But that is a surefire way to burn out and then to achieve the exact opposite of what you are trying to achieve. It's okay to be okay. And I think we have such a culture right now of like, I don't want to say it's glorifying not being okay. And I really want to be very clear that I understand that I am skirting on the edge of saying something extremely privileged right now. But I really do believe there are people who are really not okay. They are in danger emotionally, financially, physically. This hurricanes that have been happening, they are not okay. And when people who really are okay say that they're not okay, we take away the compassion that we can have for ourselves and others when they're not really okay. And it limits us. And I think sometimes I've done it to myself. I know we get ourselves in a frenzy of work, of hustle in the bad way, right? Of achieving. And we make ourselves not okay.
It's nice to see now that hustle culture is being called out for the
toxicity
and stuff. And I mean, some of the people that I follow that I really like and are now like, we have a 4-day work week and, here's Time Genius and here's, there's a lot more conversations around setting boundaries, working less, but being super productive when you are working, but taking that time off, how important that time off is for your productivity. Like that, I love those conversations that are happening right now. I see a lot of teachers that haven't gotten the message yet. Like there's just so much, it's a badge of honor about how many students you teach, it's like those kind of conversations
As
pop
though
up as
you
though
must
they're
be,
doing they're being successful because they've got a full studio, and a full studio doesn't have to be 80 students.
No.
Right? I wish Sean had learned that when he was teaching 80 students a week.
Yeah,
Right?
well, he knows now.
Yeah.
Right? And what is a full I saw this on a forum the other day, something like, what do you consider a full studio? And I thought, I'm not going to read these comments because I'll just want to stab my eye.
Right.
I'll just want to stab my face. But the whole point of having your own independent studio is that you get to decide what full is.
Right.
There's no right answer. You're not full at 80. You're not full at 10. Some people are going to be full at 5.
Right. Yeah.
Or 2. That's enough. Right?
Sure.
Because maybe they're doing other things with their businesses and their lives. So full is dependent on the business at hand.
Yeah. I like that.
But it's okay to be okay. It's okay to rest and to have that I believe balance is a lie. I don't believe in balance, but I do believe in intentional prioritization.
I'm glad you brought that up because one of our guests coming up is going to be Steve Farrell, and the topic for our next thing is that, right?
Balance.
But it's about there is no balance. You are the driver of your bus, and self-care isn't something that falls in your lap. It is premeditated. It's planned, and especially when you hold space for people, like you're taking in a lot of stuff. So that is our next conversation. I haven't convinced Steve to come to the Nova Scotia, but I'm working on it. But yeah, no, I love that. So I have to thank you again and again and again. I think we counted, there was like at least 16, 17 episodes that you have shared your awesomeness on. And I know that you give great value and great inspiration to my listeners. So I am so grateful. I also am grateful for the work that you've done with me and my business. And it's so lovely to have you here. Fun fact, Michelle refers to this as the murder house because apparently people who live in forests
next to lakes.
That's
an important part.
So I can't thank you enough. So we will have you back.
Yay!
Both in person or online, however you like.
And
I do want to encourage my listeners or viewers that if you are looking for a really fabulous community of professional voice teachers who are looking to just level up and have this type of coaching. And actually, Michelle was doing another coaching in the other room the other day, and I was eavesdropping. Like you do like a crazy amount of coaching with your team and you, to check out the Speak Easy Cooperative.
Nikki.
I can't, I mean, I think it was 2017.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You invited me. So our first podcast together, because this 200, our first podcast together was only 3 months after I had officially launched and started kind of being creepy on the internet and being like, hey, I have this thing.
And we were talking about that last night at dinner because Sean remembers this because, we had a really a friend of ours who was a piano teacher who basically was like, got a business coach, and this is back like in 2009. And it's like, I don't really want to teach in person. He was teaching online lessons back then. And he just blew up, and he actually talked to Sean about, I'm working with a business coach. And we were like, oh, is that a thing? And we kind of percolated. And then I said to my husband, I think I need a business coach. I think I need somebody to. And then I swear it was the next day you popped up in a forum and you were asking me a question. And I was like, who's this person? She's like, do you want to have a Zoom, Skype meeting?
Probably Skype.
Skype? Yeah. And I was like, okay.
Yeah.
And that's how we met. because I put out into the universe that I needed a business coach.
That's
and
amazing.
There you were. So
yeah.
So to my listeners, viewers, if you're looking to level up, if you're looking for 2025 to be a really fabulous year and have somebody to guide you through these types of decisions, Speakeasy Cooperative.
Thank you.
And I'll put all the links in the show notes.
Can I say one thing?
Sure.
Just to woo you who have not yet joined us.
There we go.
So speaking of institutional memory, last year, all this year for we have a 9-month project with 6 phases. We are in phase 4, which is a lot of other sub projects in it. But we're doing something really, really, really exciting. And we're doing a total rebuild of the members area of our website. And this is a huge project. And it is one of those things that was there from the very beginning.
That wasn't really serving any.
Right. Like I didn't like it. It wasn't working. It was clunky. We're not communicating institutional memory. People don't understand it was always that thing inside me that I was like, this has to be better. This has to be better. I don't like this. It's not, I mean, it's fine. People are still paying for it, right? And people are still getting value, but like for me, and really sitting down and doing this kind of institutional memory work was the thing that pushed me over the edge into like, we have to spend the money on this now.
Nice.
We weren't planning on it, but I don't care. I'll move some things around. And so, like right now we have an incredible onboarding process now where there's a whole section in our member dashboard that's like, read this, then read this, then read this, then read this. You can download a checklist on how to be onboarded so that you can be fully we're trying to get you in the institutional memory as soon as possible.
Nice.
So that you can use the training library. That's the phase we're on now, is a redesign of the training library. So it's so much easier to use. We've audited all the trainings, put more information in every single training so that they're easier to find. We have a new categories that we're using. And it's really just, it's like, I'm so proud of it. And I'm like, it's this amazing online resource of trainings, and then the community virtual champagne brunches are community content about pedagogy and life and wellness and everything. Just so many trainers, over 200. And then you get this great community too, right? It's like, it was like really about the community for a long time. And then it was like, oh, and here's like this member area. And now I feel like the two mighty
have come together.
Yes.
I love that.
And that they're both equally powerful and like both really able to serve one another so much better. And so I would love it. Before I'd be like, oh yeah, join, it'll be fun. But it's like I have this renewed kind of
wonderful.
how you were saying, like keeping yourself small. It's like I could feel, oh my gosh, I am like actively not marketing as much as I would, or actively not talking about the Speakeasy Cooperative as much as I would. Because I've had this like thing that was like niggling at me, this like, oh, it's not good enough. It's not, but now I'm like, no, come. It's so good.
I love it.
Like, it's so good. And we are here for you. And Nikki, I have to thank you specifically for just letting me be here forever. And like literally come to your house has been fantastic. I know I'll come again. And then just continually inviting me to share stuff on the podcast. And I'm super honored that I got to be episode 200. I'm honored and I'm so proud of you.
Oh, thank you. Thanks.
I know you're like, ew, uncomfortable feelings, but I'm so proud of you. And I've seen it. I've seen all those little changes and how far you come. And I am selfishly thrilled to hear you say that we're letting go of that. Oh, I'm just Canadian,
I know, right?
But like really stepping into that next season.
I want to finish off with just one little quick story. So, my son is 14 and, 14-year-olds don't really chit chat very much. And it's hard to get information out of him. But the other night, he's like, so why is Michelle here? Oh. And I was like, oh, oh, yeah. I said, well, one, she's a really wonderful friend and I love her. But I said, Michelle's like my business coach. He's like, what do you mean? And I'm like,
Huh.
well, Michelle is the person I go and I ask a lot of questions to. And I said, you know, I don't know if you're ready to hear this, but I said, you are going to want to find people like Michelle in your life, whether it be for baseball or coaching. And I said, like, you have a great coach, Vince, and you have, you know, your coach, Dennis. And I said, like you have to have those for business as well. And he was like, oh, okay. So I'm hoping,
Nice.
so
Planted a seed.
I hope that seed is in there, right? Because, you know,
Yeah.
again, I hope he doesn't make the same mistake I do and not ask for help and make sure he's got good people in his corner. Like, does he go to them when he needs them?
Oh yeah, we
Right?
all need that.
We all need that.
Yep. Every coach needs a coach. Every teacher needs a teacher. Every consultant needs a consultant. Like, we all need each other. So
I love it. Well, thank you. And to my listeners or viewers, all the information and the questions that Michelle asked me are going to be in the show notes. So you can take the time to go through that. I hope that you do. And we'll have to do something in the new year actually, I'll have to come to California.
shucks, we'll go to Disneyland.
Oh my gosh, I've never been to Disneyland. Never been to Disney.
It's my favorite place in the whole world.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, we could do a whole podcast about why I love Disneyland so much. I'm sure those podcasts exist. Podcasts about why people love Disney so much. Yes, please come to California. I would love it. I live in the exact opposite of this. So that would be interesting.
So not a murder house.
Not a murder house. But it is. I love the weather here. I've worn sweaters and like long, and I have slippers on right now. Like I've worn this every day. We've had fires.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, I'm looking at like where my kids and husband are, and it's like 102 degrees. And by the way, it's been 102 degrees for like 4 months straight. Wow. You know, like it's just hot all the time living where we live. And so this has been a delight to really be in fall. Yep. I dig.
Awesome. All right. Well, again, thank you. And thank you to our listeners. Thank you to our viewers. And for those of you who don't know, we are now putting video podcasts onto our YouTube channel. So if you are more of a visual learner, you might like to check that out. And you get to hang out in my Nova Scotia kitchen while we talk all things on the Full Voice Podcast.
I love it.
A special thank you to my dearest friend, Michelle Markwart Deveaux, for coming and visiting and for sharing her expertise on our 200 episode. As always, all the information is in the show notes, and I am wishing you inspired teaching and happy singing.